hope you're not doing any of this, but you probably are. Really watch me draw this today. Learn everything the artists do that make clients hate working with them, want to run away, never work with them again, and tell all their friends not to either. Because you're probably doing more than one of these. Now, this first one is going to sound like a really common practice. You might have this. You might see people that have this right now too. But I want to go ahead and just open this up by telling you why this is a terrible practice and why you should get rid of it. And to introduce that, let's just kind of think about this. What would you do if you walked into a gas station, you wanted to get something to eat, you wanted to get a drink, and there's a line 10 people long? Well, if you're like me, then I would naturally walk in and say, forget about it, I'll go somewhere else, okay? And for those of you that have a wait list, this is the exact scenario that you are setting up for yourself right now. You might think that a wait list right now is going to be one of the best options. You might think that it's kind, you might think that it's courteous. And we're going to talk a little bit later about why you don't need this and why this is a bad attitude. But overall with the waitlist, friend, this is a terrible idea. Because when you publicly put this up there, I'm not saying if you privately have this just for yourself, you need to stop doing this right now because honestly, it just scares away clients more than it does invite them. And then now let's just take a look real quick at the genesis of why you think you need to do this. So you might be somebody that has a bunch of clients. You might have 5 to 10 clients, something like that. Does that sound like you? Well, friend, here's the real issue that you have here. It's not that you need a wait list. It's that your pricing is too cheap. And I fear that if nobody else tells you that, then you will never, ever do it. So just to give you a better philosophy here as we go through this, if you have 5 clients or more, you need to double your rates because you have the interest, you have the demand, you have the amount of people that can support you. And you know what? That will actually bring more clients to you, believe it or not, because you'll seem more desirable, not less desirable, as if you're just an easy artist to work with and they don't celebrate your art, they celebrate your cheapness, friend. So if you're one of these people that have a public wait list, stop doing it right now because it just cheapens your overall appeal. Now, as you're working with clients, one of the things that is definitely going to come up here is, your updates, right? You got to go ahead and let them know as you're working throughout your process. And let me know down below, just out of curiosity, like how long does it take you to complete one of those works? And let's just think too, when that update time comes, let's say that you tell your client, hey, I'm gonna have your update by Saturday. Hey, I'm gonna have your update by Wednesday. Now Wednesday comes around and do you not give them updates? Are you somebody who's chronically late? Are you somebody who every single time that deadline rolls around, you just have an excuse for why you don't get it done? Maybe it was that you were sick. Maybe it was that something came up. Maybe it was that you had an emergency. Maybe it was that you think you had poor mental health and that's why you couldn't work on it. And we're going to talk about that specific reason in a little bit. But for those of you that are always late every single time you say you're going to have an update, well, it shouldn't come as a surprise as to why your clients don't like working with you. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm not saying that it's inappropriate or it's unprofessional for you to have those things that come up in life. But one of the things I'm going to recommend is that you have to make sure that you're communicative of this. And I'm just going to be honest, if you have an update that you told your client is going to be due on a Friday, on Friday morning, if that's not going to happen, like either the day before or the day of, you always know if you're not going to make that deadline. So then the most polite and professional thing for you to do is just to reach out and just to let them know. Don't tell them the night of that you said it was going to be done, that it's not done. If you're somebody who's chronically late, just think about this in another sense, right? Let's say that you paid somebody to take care of your kid. You put your kid into daycare, right? But then when you came to pick up your kid, they would just be sitting on the sidewalk outside of the caretaker's facility and they would be nowhere to be found. That's the bewildering sense that you're giving your clients. So if you're somebody who's chronically late, y'all, make sure that this is a priority, because if you're not somebody who's actually able to dedicate the time to this, or at least be communicative, if you need another day or two, perfectly reasonable, then that's why clients aren't enjoying working with you and aren't coming back to you. Now, following that similar line of thought, things come up a lot. Inevitably, you're gonna have some emergencies, you're gonna have some circumstances, you're gonna have some highs and lows in your life, okay? And one of the worst things that I'm going to say is the complete kiss of death is this. Are you somebody, or have you ever ignored your client? Have they reached out to you and you just completely ghosted them? Well, I wish that this wasn't such a common occurrence, but evidently every single time that I look online, this is an extremely common occurrence. And I really scratch my head to understand this. And as we go through this video, I'm going to offer you some ideas as to why you might be in this boat and exactly how you can combat this. But let me just put this out there for you, friend. Regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what's happened to you, It is completely unacceptable to go ahead and just ghost your client, all right? Just imagine this. Imagine that you had a contractor lined up who was supposed to come in and let's say that they were gonna gut your bathroom and they were gonna go ahead and refinish it, right? But let's say that they came in on day one, they demoed it, and then you just never heard from them for a month. And this sounds like something that you would see on HGTV, right? But it happens all the time with artists. And it is completely unacceptable. And y'all, the one thing I need to communicate with you very, very clearly is this. Either you do the work or you refund them for the work that was not done. Because you cannot and should not and definitely will not succeed by you allowing your client to be the victim of your circumstances. Guess what? They don't care, they're not your therapist, and they're not there to take pity on you. They are there to collect a product for which they have paid you for, okay? And if you're not willing to do that, then the most courteous thing to do is honestly walk away from the project, refund them, apologize, and fall on that sword. But under no circumstances is it ever okay to ghost a client. Have you ever done this? Because if you want to succeed, you never will if you do this. So switching topics, one thing that I've been preaching about for a long time revolves around this singular topic, and it has to do with what you're putting out there and how you're trying to attract your clients through the images that you're putting out there. And what I tend to see a lot of, artists tend to have kind of a buffet mentality, which they think that if they just offer 100 different things, then they'll get 120 different clients. And then I contrast that as well with, I see a lot of artists that will put out 1 or 2 artworks, or here's a gem. It's an artwork that's literally like the same image, but it's like, here's the lines and here's the grayscale, and then here's a flat color, and then here's a rendered version of it right here. Do you have any of these? Well, here's the issue that you're creating and why clients aren't reaching out to you. It's because they're horribly confused. They don't know what they're going to get. You have not made a really specific set of examples that show exactly what you can do, my friend, okay? And listen, it's okay for you to change your clothes. It's okay for you to change up your looks as a human being. But for you that wants to turn this into a business and actually, kind of make it and have some sustainability, transform your life like it can do, you are not gonna make it when your clients have no idea what to expect. If you have too few examples, then clients look at that and they're like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't relate to me. If you have too many examples, they're like, what the heck am I gonna get here? There's too many options. It's overwhelming here, y'all. So that's why it's really important for you to alleviate confusions, because I don't think anyone will ever tell you this except for me, but just to be honest, when clients are searching for an artist and when they're looking at examples, they're not looking at how amazing you are. They're looking for an example that connects to what they want to do. Because in one of your examples, they're gonna say, oh, that's just like I want to have. I want a character that looks just like that, with the background looks just like that. I like the colors just like that. I like the style just like that. And we'll talk in a little bit about how you go ahead and you tweak this to be even better. But if you are unspecified in what you're offering, then your clients are wholly lost and bewildered on exactly what you're going to produce for them. So if you've never even gotten clients or you're struggling to get it, this would be the first thing that I would definitely narrow down, is on how to pick your niche, and I'm gonna advise you on exactly how to get there later on. All right, now here's a big gem here. And I talk to a lot of freelancers, I talk to a lot of artists, I talk to a lot of people that are maybe just about to start. And I'm gonna tell you this, first and foremost, that clients will absolutely never work with you if you just never start. And tell me, have you ever heard horror stories? Have you ever heard about those nightmare clients? Are you afraid of getting PayPal scammed? Are you afraid of getting a refund? Are you afraid of getting chargebacks? Are you afraid of working with somebody who's just gonna treat you like crap? Are you afraid of overinvesting your time, or you're being undercharged? So at the genesis of this though, here's what I really wanna let you know. Clients will never work with you if you never start, if you never try, if you never actually apply yourself, if you're not committing any part of your time in your week towards this, then you can't expect any type of a return. And now maybe you're lost, maybe you're confused on exactly how to get there. And my friend, I really want to help you out with this. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe, and I'm going to give you real actionable advice that you can actually take action on every single week, just like this and more, so that you know exactly how to start and do much better than many other people. Because I don't want you to be one of those people that are continuing to try to figure out exactly how to do this and mulling it over. And I understand where this comes from, because I was there too at one point, and I would research and I would read about it, and I would watch other people's videos about it, and then I would sit there and I would feel like I have imposter syndrome. And does this sound like any of you? Because here's the thing, you're never gonna do the thing until you actually do the thing, which is you putting yourself out there and avoiding all of the things that we're going through in this video. And that also includes this, by the way. Now, to state the obvious, that client went ahead and commissioned you because they really like your art, they really like your style, they really like your ideas, they really like some of the details that you put into it. When you took on that job though, you were given a spec, you were given a job, you were given some type of a description, you were given perhaps some references, you were given some type of a blurb about what you were supposed to follow. And so one of the main reasons why I pick up on why clients don't enjoy working with artists is when they don't follow directions. And now listen here, friend, you're an artist, you're a visionary, you have a lot of creativity, you have amazing ideas. And more than likely, tell me if this is you down below, have you ever worked with a client and thought to yourself, well, my idea is better than theirs. Why would they think that? This doesn't sound right. I'm gonna go ahead and produce it better than them. Well, listen, that is 100% true. I'm gonna give it to you. That is mostly true pretty much all the time. However, though, please respect the fact that that client paid you in order to complete that work, that job, that character, that scene, that mood, whatever it is, to do it exactly like that, okay? And so one of the worst kisses of death you could ever do to your art business is to stop following directions, is to think that and assume that you always know better than them just because you have an idea that it's going to be superior to theirs. But you're also maybe forgetting the fact that the whole point and why this was even commissioned in the first place and why you're freelancing in order to create it is to help them. And so I want to encourage you to have a more collaborative spirit here, y'all. And maybe sometimes you even get that feedback and you don't like it. We'll talk about that in a second here. But for right now, just kind of lock into this. In freelancing, the overall attitude is of customer service. And it's okay for you to disagree with your client. It's okay for you to have a better idea. It's okay for you to talk to them about why something doesn't work. But I'm gonna encourage you this, you gotta go ahead and do it in a professional way. And I would just say this, if you think that you have a better idea and you don't approach them with it, you're actually doing them an extreme disservice and you're not giving them good customer service. Because oftentimes with me, I will have a better idea or I'll have a different version of what they have presented me with. And before I go ahead and pull the trigger on it, I'll do one of two things. Number one is I'll either do a really quick overpaint of hey, I know you wanted this, but here's this version. What do you think about that? Or number two, I'll just talk them through it, okay? And again, they may or may not like that. They may or may not see that vision, but that's your job as the creative contractor here to go ahead and convince them of it. But if they buck back against it and they don't like it, or you just go ahead and just do whatever you want, then don't be surprised when clients absolutely hate working with you, and then that causes more trouble for you down the line. Now let's touch on a touchy subject here. Have you ever gotten feedback from your client? Maybe it's about their idea, maybe you know that you could do it better, and they gave you that feedback that you weren't too happy to read. You ever felt like this? You ever open up that Discord chat or that email or that message and just been like, oh man, this is so disappointing. You know how it is, right? You worked really hard that week. You worked so hard just to make it just like that. And you're going ahead and you're plowing through this and you're putting forth copious amounts of effort and hours into that. And then you read that client's message and bam, they just annihilated you. You know what I mean? Clients aren't always the most eloquent with how they're expressing themselves. They might be like, well, that looks silly, or that looks stupid, or I don't like the way that looks, or that looks dumb. Or so how do you react when clients give you bad feedback? And this is a big topic, and it's honestly one of the major reasons why a lot of artists don't make it, is because they don't have that customer service skills, they don't have that professionalism. And here's what I'm gonna let you know. Let me just be really 100% raw and honest with you, okay? When I get feedback that I don't like, here's what I do, is I will go ahead and read it, and I want you to guess what my reaction is from that. Because you probably didn't guess it's actually this. Honestly, my first reaction is, I'm just kind of a total brat. And I'll sit there and be like, ugh, what do you know? You simpleton, you charlatan. That's a stupid idea. Why would you want to like that? Why can't you see it like that? This is so much better. Why wouldn't you go about it this way? No, I totally disagree with you up on there. That's my first reaction, but here's the key. And it's okay if you have that, okay? That's your human first reaction. But here's the thing. When you have that reaction, friend, just shut up and don't talk to them for at least a couple hours. And what I find is that when I just let myself have that reaction, and then I give myself a couple hours, first off, I cool down. Second off, I can process it. I'll read it again. What did they really mean? What did they really say? Am I just interpreting it wrong? And then I will compose myself in order to address the concern. And then for you as the artist here in this situation, I need to let you know this too. It's your duty, it's your responsibility to go ahead and deliver the client what they want. And you have two options with this one, okay? If they're a total jerk and you absolutely hate working with them, then again, just refund them. You don't want to work with them anymore, okay? Option two, just go ahead and explain to them why maybe it's too early to judge it like that. Maybe show them an example of why it's not looking like you want it to or the direction that you have intended for it, okay? Make this a show, don't tell experience as much as possible. Give them a reference, give them a quick paint over of it. Give them just a couple minutes, okay? And third, if this is something that they've already agreed to, then you're perfectly in the right to go ahead and ask for an additional fee for some type of revision to it if this exceeds the amount of revisions, which in my opinion, I don't think that you should do more than 2 revisions that take you more than 30 minutes to fix up, unless it's something incredibly minor. But if you're somebody who is incredibly aggravated every single time that you get bad feedback and then you react for it and you lash out against the client, you're making a complete fool of yourself and you're not doing anybody a service, especially yourself. Now, when it comes to freelancing, you're gonna think that being this type of person is somebody who is gonna succeed. And at the outset, you might be. You might get some clients, you might get more interest, you might get more jobs. But I'm gonna warn you that this is the most toxic personality type to be involved with any type of creative freelancing, and it is the people pleaser. And let me ask you, are you a big time people pleaser? And what does this take the shape and form of when you're freelancing? It's gonna look like this. You're too afraid to go ahead and increase your pricing. You're too afraid to ask for what you want. You're too afraid to tell the client that you don't think that's a good idea. You're too afraid to tell the client that their idea isn't plausible. Maybe sometimes too, this can relate to like the anatomy or the composition of an artwork. That happens all the time with us, okay? And then it's also gonna relate to you doing a lot of these poor practices I'm going through in this video right here. Maybe you're too afraid to go ahead and tell the client that, hey, you already told me that this part of the artwork was locked in and now you're gonna change your mind. You might be too afraid to be that person who will tell a client, hey, I've already revised this so many times, I'm gonna have to charge you now. And the issue that this comes up with is that you are just somebody who's valuing someone else's opinion more than you're valuing yourself. And I had to tackle this at one point too. Like, I wanted to succeed, I was willing to put in that time, I was willing to grind out that effort, but the more that you are a people pleaser, honestly, the reason why clients won't want to continue to work with you is because they don't respect you. And this also kind of cycles back to my earlier point about why you shouldn't have a wait list. You're thinking that that's doing something for you, and then you're also going to think then that it's doing something for your client. But honestly, the only thing that's doing anything for is your insecurity. The only thing that the waitlist does is accomplishes the fact that you're okay with just being abused by poor paying clients and that you're allowing yourself to be exploited for very, very cheap labor. And if no one's ever told you this before, friend, let me be the first, that art is a luxury product and you can't go about selling a luxury product like it is a bargain product. Like, you can't buy a Mercedes-Benz at a Walmart. And just to revolutionize your whole thought process, hear me out on this. You think that you're doing a really good service by just doing whatever the client wants, but I'm gonna advise you, you're actually doing them a terrible service, because you being a professional and you respecting yourself and you valuing yourself and you communicating what those ideas are and you doing the best practices that will actually make you a professional will bring you more business, not less business. Sounds backwards, but it's actually much more forwards thinking. What do you think about that? Now let's cycle back to that topic about updates, right? And how often are you updating? Are you updating once a week? Are you updating a couple times a week? Are you just like a speed demon and you can go ahead and just run through this and maybe you can get it done in a few days? So how often are you updating your clients? And now I want to ask you this, honestly, especially for those of you that are taking a week or more in between your updates, how much progress are you making in between those updates? Because the one thing that I tend to notice, and I see this sometimes too, even when I work with people in my mentorship, is that when I look at what they did last week, and I'm like, where did you make progress again? And so one of the big things that I'm gonna advise you on here is that you need to think about what type of progress you're actually showing to your clients. And just to give you this really good philosophy, and please steal my strategy, here we go. One of the things that I recognize is that, especially as I become a busier person, and I'm speaking as somebody right now who has a full-time job, who has a family, has a wife and kids, I have other duties and responsibilities outside of that. I also run an art business, I also run a mentorship, and I also am a doctoral student writing their dissertation right now speaking to you. So talk to me about how busy you are. I know how it feels, friend. For those of you that are in those really busy boats, a lot of times what happens is that I'll kind of get to when I tell my client, oh, I'm gonna give you an update by tonight, and I've only got like 2.5 hours. So instead of me sitting there and like working on a nose or working on a set of hands for 2.5 hours, I look at the artwork and I just say, okay, where can I make the most progress? What is the most incomplete? Where, if I were to show them this tonight, where could I actually show them that there was a good deal of progress to be made? And I've also thought about, how do I go ahead and use certain processes to speed this up? And this is where I've also kind of learned things like photo bashing. I've learned a lot more about how to make things look more painterly. I've learned about how to rough things in a little bit quicker. And so for you who's giving clients an updates and there's like very minor differences, and let's say that your client's like, oh, cool, well, what changed? And you're like, I worked on the foot since last week. Then that's why they're not enjoying their time with you and they're not going to continue to come back to you, because it doesn't look like you're doing anything. You see where I'm going with this? Now, another big thing is that whenever you give a client an update, here's a powerhouse move. Give them a quick little blurb about what to pay attention to and not. So like for me, I always kind of slap my clients with an update, and I also let them know like, hey, I worked on this, this, and that. Oh, and by the way, for next week, I'm going to work on this, this, and that. And don't pay attention to this or that. Go ahead and just let them know, put them at ease, because just think of it from their perspective. It's a very anxiety-ridden process. They're wiring lots of money to you, and they're just hoping that you, being a stranger somewhere else on the other side of the globe, is going to deliver their product. It's very anxiety-ridden. This would never happen 20 years ago, but it is the reality right now. And just to put this into another context, imagine you were building a house, and then from 1 month to the next month, you saw no progress. You're just like, okay, it's still framed. There's nothing else going on here. You would be frustrated. You would be anxious. You would be anxiety-ridden, wouldn't you? You would start wondering if they were scamming you, right? Same thing goes with your art clients. So make sure that you're actually showing important progress from week to week, from update to update. See how that works? All right, here's a goodie. And I'm gonna get real heated on this topic, so let's launch into this. And let me ask you about this topic. How do you feel about your pricing? Do you feel really good about it? Does it make you feel happy? Do you get that PayPal notification? You just jump up and down? Well, most artists don't have that experience. And what I tend to find online is when I go ahead and I look around and I see what people are offering for what they're willing to take for it, generally you're way too cheap. And what that relates to this topic is that honestly, if you're charging really cheap prices, clients don't want to work with you. And if you've never heard this before, friend, clients actually don't even care about you. They don't care about working with you. They don't care about the experience. They don't care about what you're willing to produce for them. They don't care about the vision. They just want it done, and they want it done really cheap. And this is typically the clientele that honestly, they're gonna shop a lot. And just think of it like this too, is that why would somebody wanna come to you and wanna come to you often, or come to you in like a consistent kind of pace, when there are so many other fish in the sea that are willing to do this? And this is a really sad reality, and it pains me every single time I see people making bomb work and charging like 20, 30 bucks for it. And if you've never heard this, what you need to do when you first enter the market, again, like you can take 2 or 3 cheapies, but you're not looking for money, friend. You're not looking to transform your life, not looking to pay your bills more. You're just looking for validation that you as an artist matters, and I accept that. But then after that, you gotta bump up, friend. And you should definitely be able to enter easily between $50 to $100 at a bare minimum. And for some of you that have been going along that have major skills, that's too cheap. You wanna start at $200. But for everybody here watching this, please hear me out on this one. If you are cheap, you are not attracting more clients. You're attracting terrible clients. You're attracting abusers. You're attracting people that will exploit you. You are attracting the worst of the worst. Imagine that this is a relationship scenario, okay? Would you want to go ahead and spend your life with that one amazing soulmate that's gonna love you and it's gonna go ahead and fill your cup? Or do you wanna just go ahead and just take whomever, boy, girl of the day, boy, girl of the week, that's gonna go ahead and be your partner for that extremely brief period of time? Because that's what you're producing, and you're coming off desperate. And desperation does not invite success. Desperation invites failure, my friend. And if you're too cheap, again, I get you Doesn't matter where you live. Nobody cares where in the world you're from. No one looks at you that's from Thailand and says, well, you $23. Oh, but Sean, you're from the US. Cool. $1,000 for him. That doesn't happen. So stop thinking that that matters. And this is also propagated too by all of these art commission websites. I'm talking like Artistry, Artisan Clients, Fiverr, Upwork. All of them suck for this reason, for just pigeonholing you into low pricing. But the only person that can allow that and is gonna start or stop your progress away from that is you. What do you think about that? Now this next one's starting to become a little bit more popular, and you might have seen this one too. And one reason that a client might not want to work with you, especially if maybe they're a small indie developer, maybe they're an author, maybe they have some assets for the business that they've made, and they've gone ahead and used AI for this. Have you ever been approached by somebody, or have you ever seen any jobs advertised that where they would want you to go ahead and touch up or reconfigure an AI generated image? Like they're gonna give you the asset and then you gotta go ahead and go on top of it. And one of the reasons that you might not be getting more business is because you're not willing to do that. And I just wanna say on that note, good for you. You shouldn't work with these people, okay? I wanna really make a plea to you right now. And I wanna just tell you for your longevity, friend. You have absolutely no sustainability in this. And I also want to let you know too, is that everything you're going to do for that job, it's a worthless portfolio piece. It doesn't say anything about you. It doesn't say anything about your abilities. It doesn't say anything about your repertoire of skills. All this does is just literally exploit you for really, really cheap labor, because it's going to be a low paying job too, friend. And so you're also going to go ahead and therefore expose yourself to clients that don't respect you, don't really care about you. They're just looking for somebody to get it done cheap and fast. And there's no longevity to that business practice, okay, my friend? Instead, I'm going to advise you to go ahead and do the things that I'm going to advise you through in this video and throughout my channel about how to actually attract clients and how to actually work with them. Because the people that want to go ahead and just do a light touch up here and there, they're not going to be your big supporters. They're not going to be your returning clients. And if they are, then you're throwing away your potential and you're throwing away your future. So if you're not willing to touch up AI work or work over AI work, good for you, because you've got integrity. Now back to the topic of what you're offering and what you're putting out for your clients. And this might also entail what you're delivering to them, what you're giving them on a week-to-week basis. And I don't think that anybody usually expects like ultra extreme crisp high level stuff, okay? There's an artist for every client. There is definitely a client for every stage of artistry, okay? Listen, I used to start from $30 commissions and I built myself up to be able to get upwards of $1,500 in commissions off of the single job. And the idea here that I want to expose to you now is that when I take a look at some people's offerings, and I'm not trying to be rude, I'm not trying to come at people here, but you can obviously tell that they're very, very low effort. And you can tell that it's something that they just knocked out. And you can tell that it's just something that took them just a few hours. And this is something that I also combat some people on as far as what they're offering. So let me just give you an example right here. Are you offering your sketches? Are you offering maybe just like a really loose sketch? Does this ring a bell for you? Because if so, I want to advise you on why you need to stop doing this. When you're promoting low effort practices, when you are advertising yourself with low effort products, then you're not ever going to get high paying clients, nor higher paying clients. And sometimes too, I even see new artists that are new to this game that will put out an artwork and be like, how much do I charge for this? I wouldn't charge anything for that, friend, because it's not done. And that's just something that I think every artist sometimes needs to go through and needs to hear that feedback on, is like, hey, look, I think that you need to go ahead and finish this. You need to go ahead and render it. Maybe you need to go ahead and take a course or class. Maybe you need to enter a mentorship. If that's you, by the way, I've got a link to my mentorship right down below. You can go ahead and fill out that form for that. But you might need some help in order to get that done. You might need a community in order to do that, friend. But if this is you, then the number one reason why clients don't want to work with you is because you're not actually showing them a finished product. And you can't ever get somebody who's going to be willing to invest into you when they don't have this critical component. The number one thing you have to get from a client is trust. And just, again, think about it like this. Like, there's some stranger somewhere in the world that's willing to just wire you money to complete a task, and they've never seen you, they don't know you, you have no history with them, and they're just hoping and praying and expecting to get that product back to their delight. And if you don't do enough to inspire trust, if you're doing a lot of these things throughout this video, then you're actually destroying trust in them. And they're gonna go to somebody who actually has professional practices. And that's gonna start with your professional level of work. And if you're not finishing things, if you're putting out sketches, if you're putting out partially rendered this or that, just stop. It's not a portfolio piece and it's not gonna attract your best clients. I want you to think, would you attract your number one highest paying client, the client that you would enjoy, the client that you would want to work with, the client that you would love to have come back to you week to week, month to month? Would it attract that or not? And if the answer is no, then just don't do it. How's that sound? Now, this next one's a touchy subject, and it's something that we all handle at some point in our lives as artists and as human beings. And I actually didn't know that this was a thing until I actually started to see clients online complain about it, and I saw a Twitter post about it. And I just want to go ahead and put this one out there. As you're going through life, you're going to have inevitably highs and lows. You're going to have tragedies, and you're going to have major points of elation. And to that extent, do you ever struggle with your mental health? And while you're going through that, have you ever used that as an excuse for why you didn't deliver to a client? Have you ever used this as an excuse for why you couldn't give them an update, or why you couldn't respond to them, or why you ghosted them, friend? The issue I want to tackle here really gently with y'all, but just really honestly, is that you need to stop weaponizing your mental health for your clients and from their perspective. Just to be honest, they don't care. They're not your therapist. They're not your buddy. They're not your vent channel on Discord. They're not there to receive all of the woes and sorrows that you have in life. They're there to receive an artwork. And if you're somebody, first off, that is in really poor mental health, I want you to kind of view your freelance work in one of two ways. Number one is, I definitely know from experience that this could be something that will absolutely transform and it will elevate your mental health. You'll be in a much better place. You'll be in a better financial place. You'll be in a better creative space from it, okay? And I want you to run towards that and chase that opportunity and make sure that, and understand too, that you avoiding the work is gonna worsen your mental health, not make it better. So instead of exacerbating it, think of it how that can be a very transformative opportunity for you. Number two, if you're in really poor mental health, friend, don't try to be a freelancer, okay? Address the mental health. Address what you're trying to do. Address really what the core issue is. You taking that on a client, that's not fair. You wouldn't want that to be you, friend. You wouldn't want, if your kid went off to school, your teacher to just unload, and then when you go ahead and have a conference with them, for them to just turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, I'm just in poor mental health. I'm sorry, I swore at your kid and I hit them and I treated them terribly. You wouldn't accept that. So don't expect your client to accept it either. If you need help with your mental health, then go ahead and get it before you step into that role. Or again, see it as a way to transform your mental health and take you to a better place. How's that sound? Because it's not fair to take it out on your client. They can't be collateral damage for your problems, because your problems are not their problems. Now, when it comes to backwards thinking, this one takes the cake. And the reason why I notice that some clients don't want to work with some artists is because they're not advertising their pricing. Is this you, by the way? Are you somebody that just puts up an artwork and then doesn't say how much it costs? You don't have a commission sheet? You don't have a pricing guide, friend? Well, that might be why clients don't want to work with you. Now, if you're no stranger to my channel, I'm gonna flip this discussion on its head. I want to tell you why that's actually the best thing for you. Because one of the worst practices you can do is actually to advertise your pricing, believe it or not. Because if no one's ever told you this, here's the reality. When you go ahead and you put up a commission sheet or you put up a pricing sheet, again, you're people pleasing. You're making it seem like, oh, people are going to like this. People are going to want to buy from me. But the fact is, friend, is that you're just fishing for the worst fish in the sea. You're fishing for clients that aren't looking at your artwork. They aren't impressed with what you can do. They're just looking to see how much they can get for how low they can get it. Nobody really cares about your artwork in that sense. And if you're willing to do that, then you're also willing to give up just your value, and you're also willing to give up and sacrifice your integrity as an artist in order just to get a couple bucks. And that's not worth it for you long term, because I understand, from being a cheap artist, I understand the mindset right here about what that's going to do to you, and you're going to feel worthless and you're going to feel taken advantage of, okay? And so I know your immediate reaction is like, oh my God, Sean, well, what do I do? Well, the easy thing is that you have to have a conversation. It's perfectly okay for you to not work with those clients who just want to go ahead and just grab a cheapie every once in a while. Instead, my friend, here's a better way to do that. Go ahead put up your artwork, invite a DM conversation so that it can be private. If a client isn't willing to do that, then they're not really that serious about you. And they're also not a very serious client who's willing to pay serious or more serious sums of money than what you're currently getting right now. And now your immediate reaction to this, right, is that, well, Sean, what if I waste my time having a conversation about this? Well, my friend, let's flip that on its head. What if you do have a conversation and you start getting more money? And will you close every sale? No, you won't. I don't do that either myself, and I've been doing this way for years, okay? But I'm gonna tell you from experience, and from the experience of both myself and the hundreds of other artists that I've advised to do this, is that it's completely changed their game, and it will for you too. So the fact that some clients aren't willing to work with you just because you're not open about your pricing, they don't need to know it, my friend, okay? Look, your business is your business, and if they want to be a part of that, then I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to at least reach out and have a quick conversation with you, don't you think? Or are you so ingrained in your people-pleasing ways that you think that you have to display all that, not for you, but for them? See how that works? Now, throughout this video, I've really been critiquing what the worst practices are that artists like you are doing. But let me just give some credence. Let me go ahead and give some validation to you, friend. What if you're actually working with somebody or potentially going to work with somebody who's gonna be terrible to work with, okay? Because not all clients are great. Not all clients gonna treat you right. And what should you do about that? Well, my friend, I made an entire video about it right here. Learn the art client red flags to avoid so you don't work with these people. And hey, if this helped you, make sure you share it with somebody that you know. Thanks so much and see you next time.